Okay, we are succeeding on several fronts, and that's what this video is going to hopefully demonstrate. As you can see by looking at this map, and everything here is on different layers, and I won't describe the software that we're using, although I can tell you it's Canvas. You can use any software you like, whatever you're comfortable with, and to create your maps. Now, what I was referring to earlier about the successes that we are having meant that this originated from an output from the old Game Mapper program that we used to sell and don't offer any longer. But it's still in the hands of those few who were able to get it. And this is a graphical representation in the Canvas software of that output from the map program. And what's important to note there is that in that program, the Game Mapper program was able to output into a Windows meta file, WMF format. And so therefore, bringing that into Canvas as a WMF file maintained the objects in the Game Mapper file as editable text, for instance, and individual objects. So we didn't have to redraw anything. However, it was important in creating this map from that output that I put all the objects of terrain on one layer, the numbers for the hex grid on a different layer, the hex grid itself on a different layer, and the background green texture you see here on yet another layer. And the reason for that is so that they could be easily manipulated without affecting the whole image. So that's what we're talking about here. And as you can see, some of the objects are not shown. The buildings have been removed. There's a building that was here and here and here and so on, but those have been removed because if we output this file to an online provider that makes prints, then we don't want to lock ourselves into putting the buildings in the locations. One might also say we don't also want to lock ourselves into the position of the fields. So these fields would actually be removed when this item goes to press. So what are we really talking about? We're talking about the river and the roads. And the trees, yeah, you can print them if you want to. But again, if you wanted to remove the trees prior to printing, so that you wouldn't be locked into their position, that's probably a good idea. So really all we're talking about here is obviously the bridges indicated here and the roads and rivers. Everything else would be removed. So in other words, we could take all the terrain elements like this. Yeah, the field borders and everything. Let's copy them to a new layer. So let's, it'll be off screen. You won't be able to see it. Well, maybe you can down here. We're going to create a new layer. And we're going to just leave it as layer number 5. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take these items and we're going to move them to layer number 5. So that it would be a lot easier to now I know this is on the terrain layer, but we're actually going to remove them from the terrain layer and put them in this new layer 5. So we'll leave the roads and rivers on the terrain layer. And then what we'll do is we will hide layer 5. So those objects that we move to layer 5 won't be seen. So again, here's another example. We'll take these objects and move them all to layer 5. Unfortunately, these little trees, when we created them, copy-pasted or duplicated, were not grouped, and we have to select them individually. But you can see here how relatively easy that is to do by moving them, arranging them, it's called here, but sending them to that layer 5 will take them away from visibility, and it will allow us later on to take those items and manipulate them. And by the way, they maintain their current position when you put them to a new layer. All right, so there you can see we have just our, whoops. We have just our roads and rivers on layer number, well, I think it's called green background. But we'll find out here, do it this way. So we'll hide our hex grid, we'll hide our numbers, we'll hide the terrain. As you can see, there we are. Okay, so showing it, clicking, toggling the terrain layer lets us then just manipulate the back of green, or we can see everything. So pretty cool.